Hey, what's going on, college football fans? I'm Andrew Hudson. That's Nathaniel Gilmore. Man, we had some games this week that lived up to the hype.
Yeah, man, that was a fun week of football. I think just really started off all the way from the start to the end was just fireworks.
And we will walk you through it step by step. But first, we've got to start off with our own teams, as always. And we're starting with my Florida Gators. And you might have heard it on my instant reaction. What a disappointing loss. It was just sickening to watch almost to a point. The crazy thing that happened here, if you didn't know, Florida lost 23-17 in overtime at number 8 Tennessee. And Tennessee is this offensive juggernaut. They've got this fast-paced passing running offense that has put up 60, 70 points on worse teams this year. The Florida defense shut them down. And the Florida defense that has been much maligned over previous years being just terrible. Shut them down. Had them scoreless in the whole first half. Only allowed them to have 17 points overall in regulation. The defense played amazing. I have to give it to them. And the offense just couldn't finish the job. They were moving the ball down the field. They were making plays, ended up getting a field goal in the first quarter. We're stopping the Tennessee offense, but the real problem came in the second quarter. The second quarter was brutal. Let me walk you through it. We had 3 possessions in that second quarter. Drove all the way down the field, 11 plays, 72 yards. DJ Lagway was in at quarterback on this possession. He get it down to a 4th and 1 at Tennessee's 18-yard line. Lagway, 240-pound quarterback, let him sneak it right in there. No, shotgun, sweep to Trey Wilson III. He doesn't make it. We lose the ball. Okay, defense steps up. Okay, we force a punt. Then we have 7 plays, 79 yards, all the way down the field to the 1-yard line. Graham Mertz is in at quarterback. And first and goal at the 1. What should we do? Well, this time we do quarterback sneak, but with our smaller quarterback. He gets stuffed, forced a fumble. Tennessee gets the ball. Oh my goodness. We've just lost it twice after driving right down the field, end up with no points again. Then, miraculously, Florida gets an interception. With just a minute left in the first half, we get an interception that we run all the way back to, we start off on the 11-yard line. The 11-yard line. We're right there. We have a minute left in the quarter. All we have to do is even get a field goal. Well, false start, incomplete pass, timeout Florida on an incompletion, pass for 1 yard, then 3rd and 14, we get sacked. Graham Mertz takes a, not 1, 2, a 10-yard sack back to the 25. Because we're out of timeouts now, our kicking team has to run onto the field. They get there in time, miss field goal. So we've gone the second quarter. Great drive down the field, fail 4th down conversion, run right down the field, fumble on the 1-yard line, amazing interception, miss field goal because of bad coaching. It was just so sad thinking our defense is actually doing what it needs to do. And our offense, the bright spot on the team, is not making it happen. So it was just coaching things, especially with what was happening there. DJ Lagway let him go on the quarterback sneak. And Billy Napier is so stuck to his system. Mertz for 2 drives, Lagway for 1. Mertz for 2 drives, Lagway for 1. That when they get it on first and goal at the 1-yard line, he can't put Lagway in the game. No, Mertz is the quarterback on this drive. He's got to be in there. We won a championship in 2006 on Chris Leak driving us down the field and Tim Tebow running the ball in from the 1 yard line. It worked in the past. Why don't we do it again? I don't know. And getting to the second half, our defense started allowing some scores because at some point you got to. I mean, Tennessee is still a great offense. And what killed us near the end was the injury to Mertz in the third quarter. He had non-contact, looked like it could be some kind of Achilles. It looked bad. He was hugging teammates on the sideline afterwards in street clothes and on crutches. So we'll see what the actual answer is on that. But he went out first possession, Lagway first throws an interception. Thankfully, our defense held them to a field goal. Then DJ Lagway, he's going to be a player. I promise you. He's not quite ready yet, but man, he can ball. He drove us down the field. Our defense was able to flip the field on him. We had a short drive, and he threw a gorgeous touchdown pass to put us down 17-16 with 29 seconds to go. When you're here in this spot, Billy Napier, you're down by one with an extra point to come in Tennessee, number 8 in the country. You're a huge 15-point underdog, and you came in as the coach with the catchphrase, scared money don't make money. I was telling you that a few years ago. He came in, I liked him. He was saying scared money don't make money. He's going to be brash. He's going to make big choices. And with the chance right here to go for two, to take the lead against your rival, kick the extra point. We tie it up. We go to overtime. And at that point, Tennessee is just the better team. I would trust, even though I don't really trust them to get a 2-point conversion anyway, but I would trust my guy, DJ Lagway, to make one play over my defense and offense being able to beat Tennessee in an overtime where they finally actually started getting some momentum on their side. We ended up missing a field goal in the first overtime. They drove right down and got a touchdown pretty easily, and that was it. But man, just like I was saying, so disappointing to expect to lose, but then have so much hope through the game and then have a loss in the end. So, 3-3 at this point on the season. We are now about to hit the gauntlet. We're going up against Kentucky in our next game. We're playing at home, thankfully, but easily could be a loss. They've played very well. And, at least what I've seen so far is we've actually played well. We've played better against these good teams and just haven't pulled it out, which I'm seeing actually right now. Graham Mertz has a torn ACL ending his college career. So sad to see on that point. I see, yeah, you had seen that. So disappointing for Mertz, but it's this next step for Lagway, stepping in to take control of the team, and we'll see what he can do. It'll be a good primer for him kind of leading into next year, and hopefully it can give us some hope for the years to come. But after Kentucky, we have Georgia, Texas, LSU, Mississippi, Ole Miss right there. 4 games that are just brutal. So that's where we're at right now. And, it's still fun to be a Gator fan. I'm looking forward to watching the games, but definitely disappointed to see the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, we laid out an entire game plan for Florida to follow for that small sliver of a chance to win, and they followed it to perfection. I think Nico did not look good and
no.
Made them just run the ball the entire game. And I mean, like I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, you just have to execute. I will say, silver lining, Kentucky, that quarterback is not as good as Nico, and they just lost to Vandy. So we'll see.
It's fair. I mean, we saw him lose by 1 to Georgia, and we also saw him lose to Vandy, but a Vandy team that also beat Alabama. So the SEC, it feels like we took the SEC in our hands like this and just went, whoop. We're just getting all these different reactions and different results in games. So it makes it entertaining for sure. But that leaves us with the Florida take. I'll leave it there. I know that was a lot to talk through, but we've got more to talk through. Let's talk about your USC Trojans.
I mean, man, this sucks.
uh, uh,
Third loss of the season. We talked about how we mirrored each other last week.
right.
We had pretty much the exact same thing happen. We're both 3-3,
Absolutely.
both played a top 10 team, both went to overtime, both missed the field goal, both
Yep.
should have won the game, honestly. And
Yeah.
man, yeah, I mean, that loss, we had a small sliver at the playoff. Just maybe if we win out, then we have that Notre Dame game at the end to kind of like sneak in at an 11. That ended it. Any type of shot ended it. I mean, all games have been one score games, and we have had the lead in the fourth quarter in every single game.
Wow.
Michigan, we lost the lead with 40 seconds left. Minnesota, they tied it up with 7, and then this game they tied it up with like a minute left. So I mean, this probably sucked the most out of all of them because we played so well in the first half. Every single game up to this point, the first half has been so slow and
Mm.
lethargic on both sides. I talked about it last week. But man, we came out swinging. We looked good. We doubled the rushing yards. We had success in pretty much every single aspect of the game. Lincoln Riley was in his bag calling plays. Quentin Joyner had 2 touchdowns on 2 touches. One was a 75-yard run. The other one was
Mm.
a 12-yard touchdown catch. Woody Marks was getting just chunk play after chunk play. And we're up 20-6 at halftime. Probably should have been a little more. There were some penalty. I don't even. But then Tyler Warren happened, their tight end, and he was everywhere. We had the infamous Dalton Kincaid game where when
Mm.
he was on Utah, just destroyed us. That was pretty much what happened. Yeah, he had 17 catches for 224 yards and a touchdown. He also had a completed pass and a rush. So
Oof.
he was under center twice. It was a weird, first half was so weird. Like they went out like they were the underdog and they were doing flea flickers. They were doing just double passes and they're just running screen after screen. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are they doing? Like James Franklin, do you think you're like a 20-point underdog coming into like a number one team where you just have to pull out the playbook? And we stopped them. They try to be cute and we stuffed them. I mean, Nick Singleton, I think he had 26 yards rushing the entire game.
Mm.
Like our defense played well. But yeah, you could feel the absence of Eric Gentry. He was probably the only dude that could on our team that can guard Tyler Warren, but he's probably out for the year now. But yeah, we kept them to 3.8 yards per rush. Drew Aller threw 3 interceptions. And like we're saying about the Florida game, like this was the game plan to win. Just stop the run, make Aller beat you. And I mean, he beat us. Yeah, we couldn't get him off the field on multiple fourth downs on the last drive. There was a 4th and 15 where we had a free rusher. Mason Cobb runs up the middle. There is no one there. It's 4th and 15. Aller misses a tackle, jumps, throws across his body, 16-yard catch, and it's like, all right, well, they're probably gonna tie the game here.
Mm.
And I mean, hats off to Drew Aller. He made the plays when he needed to, and offensively, after 20 points in the first half, we stalled the first 2 drives. And when you only get like 4 drives a half, that hurts. That let them tie the game up. But last 2 possessions, we scored to kind of keep the pressure on them. And it all accumulated. Last minute drive. We had a couple minutes to go. We had all 3 timeouts, and Lincoln Riley it was a slow drive. And at first it's like, why are you just letting all the clock tick down? Then you realize we have 3 timeouts, but they also have 3 timeouts. I know there's a lot of people who are arguing about how he handled the end of the game. But honestly, looking back at it, I agree. I mean, we didn't know, like, if we don't score, Penn State gets the ball with a couple of minutes and all their timeouts. So we drew up a great game plan. We got down to R40, and then on third down, we had a wide open Deuce Robinson right up the middle. Miller Moss picked the wrong time to make the worst throw of the game.
Mm.
We have a wide open 6'6" wide receiver right up the middle, and he overthrows him by a couple of inches, ends up being a pick, which, I mean, if he catches it, that's a field goal in field goal range. Maybe we make it and win the game right there. So overall, I think it was a good call by Riley to kind of drain that clock. But yeah, once it got to overtime, it was a miss. It was a mess. Too bad missed PI calls. If you want to look at Twitter, it's so bad.
Mm.
I'm so tired of this. And then we missed the field goal. They only got 6 yards on their drive, but doesn't matter because they made the field goal. Like I was just talking about officiating wise, it was just so bad. Like I hate talking about this. This is
Mm.
like I have an entire list, but I'm not gonna go into it. It's bad. We had two illegal blocking penalties. One on offense on our tight end, literally shoulder to shoulder, just chucking their guy out of the way, took away a 20-yard gain. And then we had an illegal blocking on defense.
Mm.
Didn't know that was possible. He got blocked in the back into an offensive lineman, and they called it illegal blocking. But I'd also like to note that the Big Ten did make a statement saying the game-winning touchdown from Minnesota last week should not have been reversed, and it should have been USC ball tie game. But whatever. I saw that apparently Nebraska went 23 Big Ten games when they first joined without the other team getting a holding call. That's a couple years worth. So
Wow.
we're on game 4. We still don't have one. That just means we have 19 more to go. So we'll see how
Mm.
that goes. Again, I mean, we needed to execute at a key moment, just like last week, and we didn't. We shouldn't be in these positions to start off with, and we had the game in our hands, and we punted it away. It's just tough because it's like you see, like just like you're saying, like the team is playing good. Like we are improving on all aspects of the ball, and you see this team. They're close knit. They're improving. They're looking good, but it's like the results are not going their way. Moss had time this week. We actually got to Drew Aller more than they got to
Mm.
Miller Moss. So I still have full confidence in Lincoln Riley. Next, we have Rutgers. They've struggled
Mm.
mightily in the Big Ten this year. We have the advantage almost everywhere. The only caveat is we are flying from one coast all the way to the other coast. And since it's college, these guys got to go to class. Apparently, they're trying to figure out some way to leave earlier on Friday. They're not
Mm.
going to be in Maryland long. It's a weird thing, but if we can keep Billy Edwards, their quarterback, from pushing the ball downfield, should be an easy game. It's what we thought about Minnesota too, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Disappointing. I know I saw the end of your game and then I was just it looked like Groundhog Day, seeing the end of my game, watching the missed
Exactly.
field goal and then the other team coming and winning it. So disappointing on both our ends. UF and USC are both 3-3, both disappointing to watch. So
Yeah.
we'll see what the development can be for the rest of the year. But we've got plenty more great games to talk about from this week. So let's run through them a little bit. First, we'll start off with the number one team in the country in the Red River rivalry. Texas just had their way with Oklahoma, 34 to
Yeah.
3 victory. Really, the thing to me that stood out from this game was if you asked me how Texas played, I would say, oh, it was good. But they won by 31 points. Oklahoma, of course, had a true freshman quarterback out there who is still learning his way. But the Texas team is just strong, and they
Yeah.
manhandled them.
Yeah. It sucks when Oklahoma started off the game 3-0. I saw
Mm.
that, and Quinn Ewers' first game back, I think it was his first pass back, he throws a pick, and you're like,
Mm,
oh man, Oklahoma misses a field goal, and then later on they actually get the field goal, and you're like, oh, is Oklahoma like, is this gonna be a back and forth defensive battle? And then Texas scored 21 points in the second quarter,
mm,
so think think Ewers kind of started to cook there, but yeah, I think Texas, their defense is great, and it doesn't help that Oklahoma's offense has just looked horrible all year
mm.
long. And man, it's bad. Like that Oklahoma offense is bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's yeah, leading to Texas now having a huge matchup this week
Oh yeah. Oh
against number
yeah.
5 Georgia, which man, we'll talk more about to come. But we had another top 5, really top 3 matchup, the
Hmm.
biggest game of the week. Ohio State losing on the road against Oregon 32-31. Crazy game. What do you see there?
I mean, it's Oregon. They're legit. I mean, I had questions. I had big questions about Dylan Gabriel, and they just played their game. They just kept dumping it off, slowly pushing. They just played their game. Um, and I think my words last week were there's two different stresses on, the transfer quarterbacks coming in. And I think Will Howard's not asked to do as much. And, that's how they're going to win. He was asked to do a little bit at the end. And he just, math is hard, There's 4 seconds left. I mean, 4 seconds seems like a lot, but
Yeesh.
sometimes it's not that much.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, crazy uh with that game. I mean, these are both going to be playoff teams. They've got to
Oh yeah.
be. They're
Oh yeah.
just such a fun way to see this game end with the back and forth that was going on. I've been down on Will Howard, but he's played well. Dylan
Yeah.
Gabriel also. We've talked about them this year, kind of being lackluster, but Oregon came and beat Ohio State. So, we might see a rematch in the future. We'll see what it's going to be, but man, it's just one of those games is just fun. It's just
Yeah.
so,
So
especially
much
when you
fun.
have no dog in the fight, it's just really
Yeah.
entertaining. But on the flip side, there was an interesting game in the SEC where Alabama snuck their way on by. Alabama comes out with a 27-25 victory over South Carolina. And one thing I got to say about this game is the South Carolina defense is for real.
Oh yeah.
They've got these two defensive ends, Kyle Kennard on one side, Dylan Stewart on the other. Dylan Stewart, a true freshman, by the way. These guys are dogs. And they go after the quarterback. Jalen Milroe, the most athletic quarterback in college football, was sacked 4 times. Kyle Kennard had 2 sacks, 7 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. He was just dominating the game. And I was watching it and kind of was walking in and out of the room at the end of the first half. Alabama had gotten themselves a 14-0 lead. Then South Carolina scored a
Yeah.
touchdown. I walk away from the TV and I see it's 14-9. Like, what? Kyle Kennard sacks him in the end zone. He threw it. He got a um, intentional grounding
Intentional grounding,
penalty.
yeah.
Intentional grounding in the end zone, which causes safety. Then 3 plays later, they intercept Jalen Milroe and get a field goal. So they go into halftime down 14-12. Just so good. Then they come right out in the second half to go up 19-14. And man, they just weren't able to hold it from there. They go down by 8 points. It's 27-19. And they drive down the field. Oh my goodness. Drive down the field, score a touchdown. They go for 2, and he missed him.
Yep.
Missed him. Did not. The guy was open. The receiver was open on the 2-point
Wide open.
conversion.
Yeah.
He airmailed him by 5 yards and weren't able to get it. Then miraculously, they they're able to get the onside kick. They have a few plays, throw a Hail Mary that gets intercepted, but man, Alabama just narrowly escaped death right there.
Narrowly. I think it was just such a funny game. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of going through it, but like who was it? I think it was that one running back from Louisville that's now on in the NFL. He got tripped up, right
Mm.
before the end zone, and they started thinking, oh, it's like like Todd Gurley who used to like kneel it right before the end zone. There's no reason to score. That's exactly what happened here. Alabama, what's his name? Bernard gets this big 3rd and 10, big play. South Carolina already drained their timeouts. You're up by 1 point.
Mm.
Just stop right before the end zone, win the game. He's like, let me just go in. Let me score. Now we're up 8, and I mean that's where all the madness happens. I'd also like to add that last interception, Domani Jackson, transfer from USC. So, there we go. We had our handprints on this
Oh man, that's so funny. I was watching the uh you'll have to remind me of this. I was watching the Florida game
game. Yeah.
and they're talking about a wide receiver and an old name comes to mind. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Brew McCoy.
Brew McCoy. I heard that name. I was like, I haven't heard that name in years from Nathaniel. Brew McCoy, the USC transfer over there for Tennessee. Man, so funny. But oh, that Alabama game, they just snuck out of there. They're able to stay there in the top 10, not getting their second loss on the season. And I'll say we've already mentioned multiple times, it's just fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
watch these games.
Yeah.
And people were talking before about this 12-team playoff. It's gonna make the regular season less important, or these games are gonna not mean as much. Are you kidding me? It
Yeah.
makes
This,
so many more games matter because at this point we're saying all these one-loss teams, we're saying for a lot of them, oh, they're done.
yeah.
They won't really have a hope to get in there. But even USC with 2 losses, you're saying we still might have a chance. We still might be able to get in. Think of all these teams who still think their season can happen and get to the playoffs, even though they have 1, 2 losses. I mean, it just makes it so much more entertaining.
Yeah. And I think also with NIL and the transfer portal, like I dislike it. Obviously I love, players getting the opportunity and, getting what kind of their name and image brings them. But one positive is that parity kind of increased a little. Like
Mm,
the Alabama and Georgia, they're
yeah,
not stacked. They don't have their third stringers aren't NFL caliber guys anymore. Like how many years ago would it be like, oh, Alabama and Georgia, their second, third teams probably winning like the Big 12,
yeah,
And now it's like you don't start, they're going everywhere. And so we have like Diego Pavia from New
yeah.
Mexico State, just showing, just playing a little Vandy ball, bringing them.
Mm,
I think what they're 2-1 in the SEC now, which is
yeah.
crazy to think about with the
Yeah.
tiebreaker over Alabama. Oh man, yeah, I think, yeah, college football, even with all this craziness happening, this is gearing up to be a really fun year.
And with that point being made, we had 2 teams play against each other who were in that situation. Can we stay alive with 1 loss and have stronger hopes for the playoffs? That was Ole Miss going into LSU, another overtime game where LSU took the Rebels down 29-26. Man, what a good one this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this was a weird one where LSU, they did not lead in the game at all. They
Mm,
had zero zero time with the lead. And I mean, Jackson Dart, he looks solid, but that LSU defense, like compared to last year, they just look so good. Like
mm.
they are just everywhere. You can tell that Lane Kiffin was just having a tough time trying to scheme stuff up. I mean, and then Garrett Nussmeier started off not great. He was looking a little rough to start off, but he made up for it with just a beautiful pass in overtime to Kyron
Mm,
Lacey. And I mean, Ole Miss, this was probably their 1 year, patch up all these guys from the transfer portal and make a push. And 2 losses, I mean, they have to win out if they
yeah,
want a shot at the playoffs.
yeah, absolutely. But so entertaining and seeing them come down to the end and score that touchdown to win the game. I also making me think Kyron Lacey is just the next one in line. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
remember
Yeah.
watching him last year where he was the third wheel with
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Like this other guy's pretty good too. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
have noticed him, and he just looks like a beast out there. So he'll be the next guy, probably first round pick of LSU wide receivers. But man, really good games from this past week. We have some more that we're going to touch on in our picks later on. But we're on to our trivia question. Now, we've been doing this for weeks, and man, it's getting more fun every time. So, Nathaniel's got a question for me. You play along, pause it if you want to think about your answer yourself. But what do we got this week, Nathaniel?
All right. So I kind of previewed it a little before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a trend of overtime games. So that kind of got me thinking, what is just the overall, who has the most wins? Like what's the records looking like? It actually took a while to kind of try and find like overtime game records.
I'm sure.
So I have the top five, like the most wins, but also the top five most losses in overtime. I will say the top four for both lists are exactly the same.
Wow.
So we'll just go with the top five wins. Um, so you have to kind of think, they've played, how many times they
History.
played. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say all five of them though, all five of them are like Power Four teams.
Okay. Good to know. I mean, this to me is like complete guessing for the most
Yeah.
part.
Oh, 100%. a hundred
So
percent just pure guessing.
I'm just gonna have to throw out teams one by one, and you let me know if I'm right or wrong, and I'll go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like you're saying, we got to go history. We've got to go good. Yeah, who's had opportunities? First, I got to go Michigan,
Michigan, no.
the team we just talked about having the most wins in college football history,
They're just too
have
good. They
not
don't
been
need
there.
overtime.
That's fair. Okay, how about Ohio State,
Ohio State is not on there.
Alabama?
Alabama is not on there.
Okay, you mentioned, in talking about it before, you talked about being sad. So I don't know what that's going to mean, but I'll say Florida.
Florida, no, they're not on there.
Let's keep going. We need, how about you said, yeah, power. So I'll take LSU.
LSU, no, they're not on there. Okay, I will
How about
say
Georgia?
Georgia is not on. You're picking very good teams. Most of these, I would say three out of these five teams are kind of like they're good. They've been historically like solid, but like they get into games where you would think low scoring, we're gonna like we need to go to overtime.
Okay, I just had this on my mind before you even said that. Some national championships back in the day. How about Minnesota? Okay, we'll move on from that. I just had them on my mind. Okay, how about Iowa?
Yes, they have the fourth most wins. They are 21-9 in overtimes.
21 wins in overtime. Okay, need some more teams like that. Maybe like a Kentucky.
No.
Give me a conference to look for.
All right, so we have the number one and number two are both in the SEC. Number
Okay.
three through 5 are in the Big Ten.
Okay, so just the big two
That's
conferences. So
and,
let's see.
and I
We've
will say you have been very close for the 2 Big Ten teams. Very close.
okay. So I was about to say Michigan State.
Yep, number 3.
Okay,
They are
number three.
22 and 10.
22 and 10. Okay, so they've got 22. They're right there. I've been very close. Let's say I was very close on the 2 Big Ten teams.
Yeah. This last one, like when you were describing a team, I thought you were going to say this name, but you went with another name, and I was like, you were
Like with
so
the
close.
history and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
In the Big Ten, is it Penn State?
No, no. You
Um,
history won a couple championships back in the day.
yeah,
Their
I'm trying to go
colors,
through. Uh-huh.
their color is the same, a little. The team you named, their color's a little bit darker than this team's color. Just a tad bit darker.
Like a different blue.
A different red.
Oh, okay. Uh, I mean, now I'm thinking Wisconsin or
Close.
uh uh
Used to be a Big 12 school.
is it Iowa State?
They're in the
No.
Big Ten though.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought because you said close and I said Iowa before, but I was like, Iowa State's not in there. Nebraska.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
When you said Minnesota, you were stringing me along. I was like, oh, he's
Oh
about to
yeah.
nail it. And then you went Minnesota. I was like, all right. Number 1. Oh, and then Nebraska was 20 and 9 in overtime
29.
games. So you have 1 and 2 left, both SEC.
SEC.
Mm-hmm. And one of them might have played in a overtime game this week.
Ole Miss.
No,
South Carolina.
no.
Oh no, they didn't.
Overtime game.
Tennessee?
Yep, they are number
Really?
1 at 25 and 12.
Wow, 25 wins in overtime. That's crazy. Um, and the last SEC team, I mean, Mizzou.
No. They're
Uh,
I will say we talked about them earlier in the episode. Their game was a little farther from a what you call it, from an overtime game as you can get.
from a close game like Oklahoma. Oh, or Texas.
Yeah.
Okay,
Texas
that makes sense.
23 and 11.
Okay, so what was our top five?
So we have Tennessee at 1 with 25 and 12, Texas at 2, 23 and 11, Michigan State 22 and 10,
Hmm.
Iowa at 4, 21 and 9, and then Nebraska at 5, 20 and 9. And like when you look at like the top, like the most overtime losses, it goes Tennessee, Texas, Michigan State, Iowa, Nebraska.
Wow. It's because they've been
Yeah.
in the most. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Oh shoot, there was also wait, I had another. But yeah, they were just that's literally the only team. Like I also looked up like most overtime games played. Tennessee, Texas, Michigan State, Iowa, and then Western Michigan.
Western Mish.
Just I don't know, and they don't have like a top like they're not in the top 5 in losses or wins, so I don't really know how that works, but and also all these numbers are from last year, so last week didn't
Interesting.
count. Yeah.
The Broncos stepping their way in there. Nice job.
Yeah, I don't know if this is one like I don't even know if you should be proud or like
Where are you
like
at for this? Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
That's
You're good at
interesting, man.
tying games.
Well, good stuff. Yeah, that's our trivia question. We'll have another one next week. I'll be asking Nathaniel. Let's talk now about our risers and fallers. Looking at our AP top 25, for this new week to come. Who do we see as going up? Who's going down in the public eye, in the numbers up there? Who you got for your biggest riser, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I always have to go with the non-traditional, all the fun, but I have the academy schools, the service
Mm,
academy schools. They are both in the top 25. Navy at 25 just got in, Army at 23. They're combined 11 and 0. They're the top two teams in the American. Uh, Triple option is back. I mean, Army is smoking teams this
mm,
year. Like their average score in conference games, not even just overall. In conference games, the average score is 39 to 10. And
mm.
Navy is not far behind. And I just am cooking up just chaos scenarios in my head with both of these teams. Like if they both win out, the game that they're going to play is after the AAC championship game. So if
Wow.
they top the AAC, like how's that going to work? They're going to play
Yeah.
the championship game first. I'm
And
assuming
then
their game is not even like I doubt it counts for like conference standings, but they'd play for the AAC first and then next week just replay but in a different stadium for the Commander in Chief's trophy.
it's
And I
crazy.
mean, one of them in the playoffs would just be the greatest thing ever. Just trying to see some number 7 team like LSU or Ole Miss or something like that trying to stop the triple option. They
Mm.
both have Notre Dame on the schedule left, so I'm just gonna say good luck to Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And those it's just adding up to what's going to be an awesome game
Yeah.
in the Army Navy, which I think a lot of times people see it. Oh, look, the Army Navy game's
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Flick it on for a little bit and then turn away. But
Yeah.
to have it on the if you're not part of that and don't know what's going on there, I mean, that is one of the best games of the whole year,
Oh, so much fun.
no matter what's going on
Yeah.
because of all the pageantry behind it. Biggest riser, there you go. Mine is going to go something I did a few weeks ago. My riser and faller is going to come from the same game. I've got LSU as my biggest riser and Ole Miss as my biggest faller. And let's take them one by one, knowing like we just said, they were fighting to stay with one loss, to stay in that hunt for the playoff. And with it, let's just talk through their upcoming games that we can look at. For LSU, having that win as the biggest riser, they've got Arkansas coming up, and then a couple tough games back to back at Texas A&M and at home against Alabama. Now, those are difficult, but even if they can split them and come out of it with 2 losses, they finish up with Florida, Vandy, and OU, which all certainly can be wins. Getting out of the SEC with 2 losses can certainly put them in a place to be in the playoff. Now, for Ole Miss, they're coming off of that loss and really have 4 manageable games: OU, Arkansas, Florida, and Mississippi State. But right in the middle of those 4 is a game against Georgia, which is obviously a huge test. So I would expect them to lose that game, bringing them to 3 losses, and I think taking them out of the playoff picture. So we talk about this with our risers and fallers. It's not just the numbers, which there was a big disparity in that sense, but also the perception of the voters, the perception of the public eye. How are people seeing these teams? And Ole Miss has struggled in different areas. Their offense is supposed to be crazy good, but when they've played against SEC competition, they haven't looked as oiled and ready to go as we thought. So Ole Miss is dropping down, LSU up in that public eye, and if they can get Nussmeier going, um, then they can really have a great end to the season. So that's my riser and faller all packaged into one nice little bow on top. Nathaniel, you gave us yours. How about your biggest faller from the week?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the team. They actually got booted from the top 25.
Mm,
Kind of also that perception wise where I'm going Utah. I mean,
yeah.
they were the number 10 team in the country 2 weeks ago and lost to Arizona. And that's when you're kind of, chalking it up to, okay, we have Zach Wilson's brother, little brother, Isaac Wilson, out there. He has more interceptions than he has touchdowns. A lot of potential, but, you're missing Cam Rising. Cam Rising had a hand injury at the beginning of the year, and that's been kind of holding him out. And they come in and they're playing Arizona State and Cam Rising's
Mm.
back. And everyone's thinking, all right, well, this is gonna be great. Cam Rising, they're gonna bring Utah back. And it's just he looked awful. I mean, watching him play, you can tell he was limping half the time. Like I was watching the game, I was like, I thought he had a hand injury, but he's not moving at all. And every time he threw it, he airmailed it. You can tell just a hand injury. He had 3 interceptions and had an under 50%, completion percentage, and they still didn't put Isaac Wilson back in. And I mean, they're unranked. They just got beat by a pretty good Arizona State team, but now they're mid to the bottom of the conference. Their only real wins against Oklahoma State, who's not looking good either. And I mean, it's just tough to kind of see where the season goes because when you're just leaning on your running back, that's great, but you're gonna have to have someone throwing the ball. And if the guy throwing the ball is throwing multiple interceptions, like no matter who they put out there, they're throwing multiple interceptions. And I mean, it's funny because I swear 4 weeks ago, after they beat Oklahoma State, it's like, oh man, without Cam Rising, they're just gonna run through this conference. And now they're struggling to be in the top half. So I think, yeah, Utah, they have an okay schedule. They still have to play BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State. So it's not looking pretty. And Cam Rising, he's going to be out for the season. He sustained a leg injury
Mm.
sometime. I don't know when, but he's going to be out. So Wilson's going to have to put the team on his back, and we'll see where this goes. But it's not looking good.
Will Cam Rising come back for his 12th year of college football? That's the question we're all asking.
I was talking to one of my friends today, and he actually, because he's played like 2 or 3 games, he can med red and play his 8th year. He graduated high school the same year I did.
Oof. Yeah, that is wild. That's crazy. That's a risers and fallers. And I'm going to do something that we've never done before. I'm going to give you a preview of who I think is going to be my biggest faller next week. Because if you're looking at games, I'm nervous for Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Notre Dame is going to play against Georgia Tech in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta.
yeah,
3:30 kick there. Notre Dame has not looked the strongest. Georgia Tech just came off beating Duke and North Carolina. They've got that running game, Haynes King up there. So I'd watch out for them right there. Notre Dame could be dropping a significant amount if they lose that game against Georgia Tech for sure. But that brings us to our picks. Here we go. We both had a 3-2 week last week, bringing us both to 21-15 on the season. Man, this obviously can't get any closer. We're tied.
no.
We're going to overtime like Texas and Nebraska and all those. But we've got, if we talked about this week being fun, it's just going to keep being fun, everybody. And we're going to talk about these games to come. The first one on the docket is number 7 Alabama traveling on the road to number 11 Tennessee. 3:30 kick. Huge game here in Knoxville as both teams just escaped against inferior talent against them. Alabama is coming into here as I'm seeing a 2.5 point favorite. I've seen different numbers, but huge game for both of them. Here are my thoughts. Tennessee has shown their promise early in the year. We said both teams just came off of close wins. I think that we're really seeing the truth of Tennessee at this point. Their offense is not as high powered as we were considering in the beginning, when they're facing strong SEC defenses, they're not living up to par. I think Alabama is going to come in there and really lay it on them. I think they're going to come out hot. I think they're going to score quickly, and I think they're going to win this game by maybe double digits. Even though it's in Knoxville, I see Alabama coming out with the victory here.
Ooh, big prediction. I
Big
just want
prediction.
to remind you, a couple years back, last time this game was in Neyland, we talked about Brew McCoy. He made an impact on this game. Him
Did.
and Chase McGrath. That's the last time we talked about those names was because they played big parts in beating Alabama. But I mean, this one's hard because it's Tennessee's defense. I think they're legit.
Hmm.
Alabama's defense looks a little less than legit. Their secondary is just really iffy right now, and I think they played their best football that first half against Georgia, and since then it's just been what is happening.
Hmm.
I don't think they're a top tier team. I think they're a solid team. I think Tennessee has the potential. I think they have a higher potential just because Nico just has to figure it out.
Right.
And this could be a team which he figures it out against. I think he's going to have a good game, but I agree with you. I think Alabama's going to come in. I think it's going to be a little closer, but I think Nico's going to figure it out late, maybe a 7 point game, 3 point game down at the stretch, but I'm picking out.
Yeah, and I'll say to that, everyone was saying he's going to figure it out against this Florida defense, who has been really bad in the past, and they held him to 17 points in regulation. So definitely
Yeah,
don't
we'll
know what's
see.
going to come of that. And yeah, if Nico can actually turn things around. But next one on the docket, we're going to the Big Ten as number 24 Michigan is going to play against number 22 Illinois, Fighting Illini in this one. Who do you have, Nathaniel?
This one's a tough one. I mean, it's like if Alex Orji was still the starter at Michigan, I think it's cut and dry. I think Illinois has just gotten is good. And but now you switch Jack Tuttle's in. I think he was hurt to start the year, and I think they're just so lost on what they wanted to do because I think the plan was for Tuttle to come in there and start over over Orji. And the offense looked a lot better with him on the helm, but I think this is tough. Illinois has been looking good. They just came off of a crazy 50-49 win
Mm-hmm.
against Purdue, a 1-5 Purdue. You're gonna have to do a little bit better than that. They're at home, but I'm taking Michigan here.
Taking Michigan to win this game. You're right. I have, in a sense, lost faith in the Michigan offense as a whole. Like you're saying, Tuttle's coming in, and he's gonna get the ship righted and going in the right direction. I totally believe in that. This Illinois team really is interesting to watch. We mentioned them before. They've got Luke Altmaier at quarterback. So far this year, touchdown to interception, 14 touchdowns, one pick. He's
Yeah.
been playing some really good football. Their
Hmm.
offense has been doing well so far in this season, allowing them to have a 5-1 record to this point. And they've played some bad teams. Their one game against, a top 10 opponent was a 21-7 loss against Penn State. I am gonna go with Illinois here in Champaign, taking on Michigan. I have more hope in them, and in my heart, I think I want to see them win more than I want to see Michigan win. So I'm going with the Fighting Illini, and I'm liking it. Nice. Next one, move over to the ACC. We have Miami traveling to Louisville. Miami, a 4-point favorite in this one. And, a game that a few weeks ago was being chalked up as a great game that we were looking forward to this week. But it's kind of been let down with how Louisville has been playing over the past few weeks. They are now 4-2. They've dropped out of the top 25 after losing a couple games back to back against Notre Dame and then SMU. And the game's kind of lost its luster. Now, Miami is also coming off of a bye week. They had their crazy trip to Cal where they snuck away with a win there. They've had a week to rest, now traveling to Louisville. And I think they're just going to keep their winning ways. Miami has been great this season, even with some wild endings to games. And Louisville, it has been sputtering. So I'm going with Miami to continue undefeated and jump closer to that top five range.
Yeah, this one, I think this one's tough because in my head, Miami is just a version of Missouri, better quarterback,
Mm,
but they're in an easier conference. I mean, just they're it's so hard to ignore the last two games where they were just non-existent pretty much in that first half in both games. And then it just takes Cam Ward just spinning his magic to get them back to win the game. And as a USC fan, watching that style of football with Caleb Williams, where you are just putting so much weight on one guy's shoulder, and like you got like Damian Martinez, the guy transferred from Oregon State, he was supposed to play such a big part of this offense, and he just hasn't been that. Their running game has been non-existent, and this is tough. I mean, Tyler Shuck, he's been doing decent. And I think this is honestly Miami's last real test, and it's away. And I just think they're going to lose the game. So I think I have
mm,
to go Louisville here.
yeah, I like it. You think it's got to catch up to them at some point, right?
Some point,
They
unless
keep
they
having these
fixed
scares.
everything on the bye week, unless they fixed, well, I don't, I think Louisville, especially at home.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Well, let's jump over. Our last two games are in the SEC, starting with Auburn traveling to number 19, Missouri. Missouri is a 4.5 point favorite here. 11 o'clock kick in Central Time over there in Missouri. So, interesting game we're looking at here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, I've been on the hate train, on Missouri's hate train for pretty much all year long.
Yes.
And Auburn, they they are they're 2-4, and
Yes.
they haven't looked like a 2-4 team. You know, they played decent. You know, they that Georgia game was a lot closer than that 31-13. They should have beat Oklahoma. Peyton Thorne threw a pick six
Hmm.
when they were up to lose that game. That Arkansas game was really close, and that Cal game, it's like if you don't throw like six interceptions, you're gonna win that game. So it's tough. It's at Missouri. Missouri had a bounce back game against checking the notes, University of Massachusetts. Uh,
Miss versus mass, man. Miss versus mass.
yeah, it was in Massachusetts too. I was watching that game like, what is happening? At least they travel, you know. Um, Sadly, I'm gonna go with Missouri here. I want Auburn to win, but I think last week was their first time not throwing like more than one interception.
Hmm.
So they're on the right trend. I think they're a better team than they are, but I think Missouri is just going to be too much.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say. You pretty much said it all. I'm in the same boat. I don't have much trust in the Missouri team overall, but I think they're going to be able to beat Auburn and led by Peyton Thorne, who I just don't trust as a quarterback. So going with Missouri to go to 6-1 and continue to have hope in their season to this point. But we're moving on to the big game, the huge game of the week, one of the biggest games of the season. We've got number 5 Georgia traveling to play number 1 Texas. Saturday night, 7:30 kick. Huge game. I saw that Georgia Tech game I was talking about earlier online. It said tickets as low as $32. For this game, we're looking at as low as $210.
Jeez.
So you got to pay your pretty penny to get yourself into this game. But man, top five matchup. We've got Georgia with obviously the pedigree of two championships in the last 3 years. But this year, they've just been off. Even in their last win against Mississippi State, they won 41-31. They gave up 31 points to this Mississippi State team that has been um, really looking bad over this year. They obviously lost to Alabama. They only won by one against Kentucky. They're traveling to Texas, who has we've already talked about been dominating through this year, just laid waste to their arch rival Oklahoma. They are coming in, getting Quinn Ewers one game off of injury, and he seems to be back to normal. So, as much as it hurts me with my pick in the beginning of the year being Georgia to win the championship, I've got to go with Texas. Texas at home looking like the better team right now. And I just can't say anything else about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I mean, looking at both teams, Georgia outside of the Clemson game, which that's been the outlier this entire season because you take away that
Yes.
Clemson game, every single game they've played, they haven't looked great. You
No.
know, I mean, they had that great second half against Alabama, but you could argue Alabama was not a great defense and they were playing off the entire second half just because they're up by so much. And then, I mean, like you said, the Kentucky game, the Mississippi State game, but when they look off, they're still blowing teams out. Like,
Yeah.
they might struggle in the first or second quarter, but they run them. And that was with their second string quarterback. Granted, Archie Manning, but I mean, they've looked good and their defense has looked so much better than I thought they would. Granted, they've also haven't played tough offenses and Oklahoma's not going to push you. So I think this will be a fun matchup, but I think especially in Texas, I don't see them losing this game.
Yeah. There we have it. We've got, so many more good games. Everyone's going to be watching on Saturday night. Georgia taking on Texas. And we'll be back to talk about it next week and see if we got these right. We'll have to tune in and follow up. But with that, you can follow us on YouTube, listen to us on Spotify, follow us on Instagram. We've got our posts throughout the week and our instant reactions to the Florida and USC games. Even if they're sad, they're still there. Hey, follow us. Listen again next week. We're so glad to just talk sports, talk college football with you guys. So tune in for Nathaniel Gilmore. I am Andrew Hudson. Have yourself a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.